light symbolizing all of our positive qualities and so forth. And then on each out-breath, we imagine breathing that out, that white light. It goes across, fills their body and mind, and that white light is transforming into everything they need to be happy. So we do that on the out-breath. So this is the traditional way it's taught. The way we did the second half we do as that way. The first half, the compassion part, in our compassion meditation, instead of this black rock of self-cherishing, of course, what we visualized was the white light symbolizing the inner purity of our mind. And then with the smoke, we imagine that the smoke comes in and gets dissolved in that white light. So of course the symbolism there is that that inner purity of our mind, which sometimes is called Buddha nature, is our inner wisdom. And it's our inner wisdom that destroys suffering. So that's the symbolism of dissolving the black smoke in the white light. And I think, and of course you can use either method you prefer, but I think in our modern society, the traditional method sometimes can lead to a bit of difficulty, because one is we have this obsessive focus on the negative, and so here we're focusing on the self-cherishing mind as a black rock, and then sometimes what people do is in the visualization they simply take on the smoke and sort of hold on to it and sort of punish themselves because they think they deserve to suffer. So of course that's not the practice, and that's just cognitive fusion. So I think for many of us it's probably better to use the other approach with the white light to really focus on our inner purity and use that approach. But you can use either approach you prefer. So what we'll do in this practice now is we'll use the approach we've been using, the white light approach, and then tomorrow afternoon we'll practice the other approach, the black rock approach. So you're familiar with both of them. So what we'll do now then is we'll do a Glen meditation, and again we'll start with ourselves and then slowly move out to others. And so we're moving from self to others in a step-by-step way, but also in this practice, when we're picking someone else, for example, when we're picking a friend, we often pick a person who's actually got some sort of problem or suffering at the moment. And here we need to do it in a step-by-step way. As a beginner, probably not a good idea to pick the person who has the biggest problem, because we'll probably just get overwhelmed when we try and do this because we're not used to it. So rather, if we've not done this practice much before, when we pick someone else with a problem, pick someone with a small problem, so we don't get overwhelmed. And then step by step we can start picking people with bigger and bigger problems. So that's another bit of advice. So let's do that meditation now, and then a couple more comments about the Glen practice after the meditation. So we'll do one 20-minute practice. As an act of loving kindness for yourself, allow your awareness to descend into the body. Simply becoming aware of sensations throughout the body. And And using the out-breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. Allowing the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. And setting the mind in a state of ease and relaxation. Bringing the mind into the present moment. And simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. Glen is a Tibetan word meaning giving and taking. It's a very powerful method to transform the self-cherishing mind into a mind of cherishing others, to transform attachment and aversion into loving kindness and compassion. And we can begin by doing the Tonglen practice toward ourselves and then expand out to others. no matter how much mental afflictions are in our mind, they are not part of the nature of our mind. They are merely covering the surface of our mind. And beneath all of our mental afflictions is the natural purity of our mind. So imagine this inner purity of your mind in the form of a small, white, radiant sphere of light in the center of your chest, at the level of your heart. And then arouse the thought, how wonderful it would be if I were free of suffering and its causes. May I be free of all suffering and its causes. May I be free of all mental afflictions. And then imagine your mental afflictions and the suffering in the form of black smoke filling your body. And then with each in-breath, imagine drawing that black smoke into the sphere of light at your heart, completely dissolving it there. So with each in-breath, breathe in with compassion, dissolving and extinguishing your mental afflictions and suffering at your heart, dissolving it into your inner wisdom, inner purity. And then imagine the black cloud is now completely extinguished. And now you're free of all mental afflictions and suffering. And simply rest in that freedom, that purity. And then arouse the thought, how wonderful it would be if I had happiness and its causes. May I be truly well and happy. And then with each out-breath, imagine rays of light radiating out from the sphere of light at your heart, filling your entire body and mind, and transforming into everything you need to be happy. So with each out-breath, breathe out the light of loving kindness, sending to yourself whatever you need to be happy, in the short term and the long term. And then imagine you've now found the genuine happiness that you seek, that state of inner well-being, and rest in that state. And just as you wish to be happy and be free of suffering, so does everyone else. So next bring to mind someone close to you, a loved one, who's currently experiencing some form of physical or mental problem or suffering. And picture them very clearly in front of you. And arouse the thought, how wonderful it would be if they were free of that problem, free of that suffering. May you be free of all suffering and its causes. And then imagine their problem or suffering in the form of black smoke filling their body. And then with each in-breath, imagine drawing that black smoke out of their body and bringing it into the sphere of light at your heart, completely dissolving it there. So with each in-breath, breathe in with compassion, dissolving and extinguishing their suffering at your heart. Then imagine the black cloud is now completely extinguished, and now they're completely free of that problem or suffering. And take joy in this. And then arouse the thought, how wonderful it would be if they had happiness in its causes. May you be truly well and happy. And with each out-breath, breathe out the light of loving kindness, sending to them whatever they need to be happy, in the short term and the long term. And imagine that they've now found the genuine happiness that is their heart's desire. And rejoice in this. And then allow your field of loving kindness and compassion to expand out further. And allow your mind to move around, And whoever comes to mind, attend to them. May you be free of suffering and its causes. May you be truly well and happy. Breathing in with compassion, dissolving and extinguishing the suffering at your heart, and breathing out the light of loving kindness, sending to them whatever they need to be happy. Allow your mind to continue to move around. Whoever comes to mind, whether it's an individual or even a group of people, attend to them. Breathing in with compassion, breathing out the light of loving kindness. Sometimes with this Tonglen practice there's a doubt or even a concern, and that is that, you know, if we do this with someone else with some serious illness, will I get their illness? And of course the answer is no, because this is a mental exercise. You can't actually take their illness from them. But then when that's explained, then often people go, well, what's the point in this practice then if we can't actually take any suffering from anyone? The point of this meditation is to reduce our attachment, aversion, self-cherishing, increase cherishing others, loving kindness and compassion. So actually the main beneficiary of this, direct beneficiary of this practice is you yourself. To reduce your selfishness, increase the mind of cherishing others, decrease your attachment, aversion, increase loving kindness and compassion. Which means then, if you do this practice well, it means outside of this practice, then you'll help others in a more pure way, because even now, sometimes when we help our friends, we sometimes do it with a bit of a selfish motivation, like, I know best, you should do what I tell you, sort of thing. So with this practice, the way we help others will become more pure, less selfish-based, and also we'll start to help people who we normally now maybe don't bother with. So therefore, so we are the direct beneficiaries, and of course everyone else is the indirect beneficiaries of this practice. But also, at a subtle level, I think we can have a subtle, direct, positive impact on others. And I think there's some scientific evidence to support this, and certainly from a Buddhist perspective of the interdependent nature of reality, particularly if we have a connection with a person, if we mentally really are wishing to take their suffering and really wishing to give them happiness, due to that connection, I think we can have a very subtle positive impact on that person's mind, even if they're on the other side of the planet. And one other thing is that that in general, I think when we're doing this practice for others, it's best to do it anonymously, for two reasons. One is, of course, if we tell them we're doing for it, there's a chance that the selfish mind will get in there and go, you better appreciate this because I'm doing this for you. You know that, don't you? So that's one reason. Secondly, and this I find very unfortunate, but apparently modern studies have shown that if we pray for people who are sick and we tell them we're praying for them, on average it has a slight negative impact. Really. Apparently studies show this. I don't know why, maybe because the other person feels like they're under pressure or they don't like people doing things for them, whatever the reason, but studies show that on average it's a slight negative impact. I find that very tragic. But anyway. So again, I think also it's better to do it anonymously. There's less likely then it'll become a bit of an ego trip, you know, that I'm doing all these things for you, sort of thing. So, yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. So any questions about this practice?
When I think about someone I love very much, and I think about their suffering, I feel like I'm attached.
Attached? Yeah.
Like I want them to be happy because it makes me sad that they are not happy.
Yeah, sure.
You understand?
Sure.
So like the motivation is...
Sure. And that's what I said, is that now we tend to often be quite selfish even when we want good things or do good things for others. So as step 4 mentioned, is to notice that and try to reduce that as much as possible and still do that good act, and don't beat ourselves up because we have a selfish motivation. I mean, the reality is, particularly in our modern society, we tend to be quite selfish. And in fact, His Holiness Dalai Lama, sometimes when he's giving public talks, and he sort of touches on this topic, and he realizes that, you know, many of us in our modern society are very selfish. And of course, according to Buddhism here, we're trying to really be unselfish, be cherishing others.